So for the last 2 weeks, I have done an overly technical analysis of the iPhone 17 Pro camera versus the Google Pixel 10 Pro camera. And after all of this testing, unfortunately, there is one word to describe the Google Pixel 10 Pro's photography capabilities, and it's not a good one. So let's get into it. Let's go through a number of different examples that I created, and big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. So I have a pretty simple goal when it comes to comparing these two smartphone cameras, and that goal is to go a little bit deeper than traditional tech videos when we're comparing these cameras. Now, this test begins last week in LA. I was there for Adobe Max, and I had this really cool Airbnb with this amazing view of downtown, and it used to be the Staples Center. I believe it's Crypto Arena now, but all the stuff that was happening for Adobe Max, I had a topside view of. So I took both cameras out and first did a basic Jpeg comparison. For this Jpeg test, the iPhone shoots at 48 megapixels and the Pixel 10 Pro shoots at 50 megapixels. And this test was just a little bit of a toss-up in my opinion. I leaned a little bit towards the iPhone when I look at the 1x zoom. Both cameras look about the same, but when you zoom in, there is more resolution on the iPhone. When we compare the 4x zoom, I just like the iPhone image a little bit better. I think the building is a little bit cleaner, but it's a matter of personal preference here. Some people might like the more contrasty look on the Pixel 10. When we do the 8x versus 10x zoom, this one is once again kind of a toss-up. I can't necessarily pick a winner. Let me know in the comments which one you like more for this 10x versus 8x comparison and this 4x versus 5x comparison as well. I would love to know y'all's thoughts, because me looking at it right now, I can't really pick one or the other. They're very similar. And I felt the same way about the ultra-wide as well. When we have ultra-wide JPEG images from both cameras, side by side, they look almost identical. You could make an argument that the Pixel 10 Pro handles the highlights of this sunrise a little bit better. And personally, when I zoom in on the images, I prefer the Pixel 10 Pro because I think it handles this weird neon lighting that's going on this ESPN building a little bit better as well. But once again, it's just splitting hairs. This is up to personal preference. Both phones do a great job in JPEG. But like I said, let me know which one you prefer in the comments, because this is definitely an interesting debate. But these similarities quickly fell apart when I started comparing the RAW files from both cameras. When you're making images in RAW, look at these two photos. These are shot at the 1x standard zoom camera on both smartphones with a RAW format straight out of camera, with the Apple ProRAW picture profile applied and the Google Pixel picture profile applied. Notice how the Google Pixel image has this almost smoothed out weird look to it. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's extremely dramatic in person when you're looking at this in Lightroom Mobile. It becomes even more apparent when you look at photos with the zoom lens. Look at these two zoom photos, one at 4x on the iPhone and 5x on the Pixel 10 Pro. You'll notice how smooth and just kind of weird the Pixel image looks when you're shooting in RAW. It's very dramatic here. It's almost like there's a glamour glow or a haze filter applied to the image. You can see the same thing on this 10x versus 8x, but honestly, I don't think it's as pronounced here because both images are cell phone telephoto photos, so they're not the most detailed anyways, but you can still tell that the Pixel image has some type of smoothing applied to it. And this haze/glow effect is also present in the ultra-wide images from the Pixel 10 as well. When you look at this close-up of the Adobe sign, it's very clear that one sign has texture from the iPhone and the Pixel 10 has no texture. It's been smoothed out for whatever reason. Now, initially I was thinking maybe there's some type of bias here. Like maybe it was just this situation, all these photos are from the exact same location. So when I got home, I took the camera out and did more basic comparisons. And I started to find more of the same. We have this photo of this basketball goal. The Pixel 10 Pro image is clearly slightly smoothed out. There's something happening with the processing. Now, this smoothing effect does become more pronounced when we go back to the ultra wide camera. The Pixel 10 Pro image of this truck here is clearly a little bit smoother and less sharp looking. Same thing here with this image of this hat. It's very noticeable how the pavement is smoothed out and how the hat is smoothed out as well. Same thing here with the 8x versus 10x zoom. It's really obvious here. The truck and everything just looks all blown out and hazy, and you can see it here as well with the 5x versus 4x. This one is pretty bad as well. So at this point in the video, after staring at these examples for way too long and re-recording this section of the video for a third time, I understand what is going on with these Google Pixel images, why this smoothing effect is present, and more importantly, how to fix it, and also how it impacts my opinion on the Pixel 10 Pro versus the iPhone 17 Pro. But before I talk about that, do me a solid, hit the thumbs up button. It makes all of this tedious work worth it. And also, I want to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. Now, one reason I enjoy making these smartphone videos is because when I started photography, the barrier to entry was so high. You needed to go out and buy a camera, expensive lenses. There was just so much you had to learn, whereas now you can do all of this from the phone in your pocket. And if you're someone who's looking to take your creativity further, the best next step is a professional looking website. A website from Squarespace, which is where I built my website, evanranft.com, allows you to showcase your work with a beautiful portfolio. It allows you to do things like connect with your audience through a newsletter or blog or even email marketing tools, and you can eventually sell things like your presets, prints, anything that you are creating, maybe photo books like me. I'm actually working on my next book now, and it will be sold through my website, evanranft.com, because Squarespace makes it so easy to run a creative business. Squarespace also allows you to do things like sell courses, and on top of that, Squarespace has Squarespace payments, which means you don't even need a third-party payment processor to begin making money from your creativity. It can all be done through Squarespace. Now, I know what most people think, building a website is complicated. Luckily, Squarespace has all of their award-winning templates and the implementation of AI tools to help you design a website just based off a prompt or idea. So if you're someone who has been hesitant to build a website, I definitely recommend checking out Squarespace, checking out some of their AI tools, and if you're someone who wants to build a portfolio or copy my website, you can check out the website resources tab down in the description. There's 2 videos for you to check out to get you jump started on building your website. So go to squarespace.com/evanranft to start a free trial and use code evanranft to save 10% at checkout. That's squarespace.com/evanranft to start a free trial and use code evanranft to save 10% at checkout. Big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. All right, so the next few minutes of this video are going to be very technical and a little bit nerdy, but so important in understanding what is going on with the photography capabilities of your smartphone. Now, it starts with the importance of RAW files. The reason why in all these smartphone videos on this channel I talk so much about RAW files is because RAW files is what makes a pro phone pro. If you don't want RAW files, you might as well just use any of the other phones out there. And that's because RAW files give you more capabilities as an editor and user of your photos. You can access all the data that your sensor has with RAW files, making them more malleable. You have access to more dynamic range. You can change your white balance. You can manipulate your colors, and typically you can get more detail because you're removing a lot of the processing that comes with smartphone photography. Because smartphone photography has something called computational photography built into it. This is when your phone can take the highlights and shadows of an image, put them together, and create this perfectly exposed photo. It's the reason why in our test examples, the Jpeg images from both phones look relatively similar. It's because you're not using a RAW file here, you're using essentially a computational software processed image, and both phones are great at that. Now, the issue with the Google Pixel and why the RAW files are so smooth has to do with something called a picture profile. Now, when it comes to editing RAW files, you need a picture profile to tell your editing software how to interpret that particular file, how to interpret the colors, how to interpret the lighting. Everything is dictated by the picture profile. The best metaphor I have for it is think about sunglasses. You can look at the world and see it one way, put on sunglasses, see it a completely completely different way, change your sunglasses, and now see it in a completely different way once again. That is what picture profiles will do to your RAW file. Every picture profile is going to be different. Now, when it comes to smartphone manufacturers, they like to embed a picture profile into their RAW files. They do this so their RAW file will replicate the computational photography look that so many people are used to with JPEGs. They do this intentionally to make the files more user-friendly. Most average users don't want to get a RAW file that looks extremely dark like they typically would look from an iPhone if you remove that picture profile. They want the images to be well exposed. So I understand why it's there. Now, in the case of the iPhone and Apple ProRAW as a picture profile, it works completely fine. I don't see any issues with it. I haven't had issues with it over the last couple years. Now, with the Google Pixel 10 Pro, the picture profile that is embedded into these RAW files is the Google Pixel picture profile. This picture profile is what is causing this overly smooth look to the images. Now, I have to expect that this has something to do with Google trying to compensate for maybe some issues going on with the RAW files and with all the raw data and the way the photo is exposed. Now, this negatively impacts the photos in my opinion, and if I was someone who is an average user and went out and bought the phone and tried to mess around with RAW files and got the result of this hyper smooth image, I'd be a little bit annoyed. So the way you fix this is by going into Lightroom Mobile and removing the profile. You want to change your picture profile from Google Pixel to something more standard like Adobe Standard or Adobe Color, and this will allow you to remove that smoothing effect. Now, the issue here is once you remove this profile, you now have to be skilled enough to edit your photo in a way to where it looks the way you want. You're probably going to have to bring your shadows up, your highlights down, you're going to have to mess with your exposure. It's not going to be simple and clean like it is from the iPhone. And this has actually inspired me to make a mini course on moderncreativemoney.com, breaking all this down and helping people. But we'll talk about that another day. But all in all, the fact that Google has created a pro phone and the primary pro feature for photography being RAW files has this major issue and has a default picture profile that looks so bad, in my opinion, creates a phone that I can only describe in one word, and that is inconsistent. After going through all these examples and making this video, I'm still not 100% sure on how to make the best photos from this. Whereas with the iPhone, it's cut and dry. It's always been the same. The iPhone has its limitations, but there's no issue with the way the photos are being read. And for the average person who maybe wants a little bit more from their phone because they paid more, being able to easily edit and manipulate your images, even when they are a RAW file, makes the iPhone a no-brainer. Now, with the Google Pixel 9, I loved that phone because this picture profile issue was not an issue. I loved the way I could edit my photos from the Pixel 9 Pro the same way I could with any other camera. But with the 10, it seems like that has changed, and in my opinion, it's not great. You're going to have to really understand how to manipulate your photos to get the most out of them, or you're going to be dealing with images that look like they have a default glamour glow preset applied to them. Those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you are not yet, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.